From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day. Radio Pilipinas World Service can also be heard on shortwave broadcast through the shortwave facilities of the United States Agency for Global Media or Voice of America on the following shortwave frequencies: 15.640 MHz, 17.750 MHz, and 21.720 MHz. I'm your host, Leo Magpayo, and this is Dateline Malacañang. Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. continues to personally lead the rollout of financial aid and government services to local communities under the Bawat Bayan Makikinabang program, as the administration intensifies direct support to cities and municipalities nationwide. This Monday morning, the President is in Makati City, where he is set to oversee another round of assistance distribution. The Local Government Support Fund, or LGSF, will be formally turned over in Barangay Singkamas and at the Makati Coliseum, marking the latest stop in the President's ongoing effort to bring national government programs directly to the grassroots. He is also scheduled to visit the Tejeros Health Center to highlight the administration's push for accessible community-level healthcare. The program package includes the distribution of rice to low-income families, expanded scholarship support, and funding for livelihood and small community projects aimed at helping households recover and sustain income. Mobile health services will also be deployed to provide basic medical assistance to residents. In his message to the presidential scholars, the chief executive explained that half of the allocated 200,000 pesos is earmarked for priority barangay needs such as administrative equipment, street lighting, and disaster risk reduction tools. The other 100,000 is dedicated to education assistance, providing 5 financially challenged graduating students per barangay with 20,000 pesos each to help them complete their studies.
Naging presidential scholar kayo dahil meron kaming programa na nagbababa ng pondo sa ating mga barangay officials. At ang halaga nito ay 200,000 piso bawat barangay. Yung ihiningi lang namin sa mga barangay official na yung kalahati nun, yung 100,000 ay gagamitin para magbigay ng scholarship. Bawat barangay mamimili ng 5 na presidential scholar at bibigyan ng tigta 20,000. Yan ang programa. Kaya't lahat ng nabigyan ay kayo na yun ay naging presidential scholar. Ang sinabi ko sa kanila, suggestion ko lang sa kanila na dapat hanapin nila yung mga malapit na magtapos. Pero baka hindi magtapos dahil nga kulang sa pambayad, whatever, kailangan magtrabaho. Whatever the reason is, ito yung tulong para naman makapag-graduate yung ating mga kabataan. And dahil napakahalaga na magkaroon kayo ng magandang pinag-aralan. A good education is a gift that cannot be taken away from you. Yan ang aking laging sinasabi. At ito ay napakahalaga dahil alam naman natin, pagka magandang training, pagka magandang napag-aralan, ay maliwanag, ay marami kayong magagawa upang tulungan ang inyong sarili, para tulungan ninyo yung mga pamilya ninyo, tulungan ninyo ang Pilipinas, mararamdaman ng Pilipinas yan, sa buong Pilipinas yan. Kaya't napakaganda nito dahil sa 42,000 plus na barangay, tiglilimang scholar yan, labis sa 200,000 ang mabibigyan natin ng tulong na scholar. And that is important because lagi ko namang iniisip, kaming mga nakaupo ngayon, di forever ito eh. Darating ang panahon, nandyan kayo na ang magpapatakbo ng lahat, ng mga negosyo, ng mga sa gobyerno. At mabuti naman, pagka masabi natin na nakapag-aral kayo na mabuti, magandang inyong edukasyon, ay ready na kayo. Ready na kayo para dito sa bagong challenge na ihaharap sa inyo.
At 5 in the afternoon, the Bawat Bayan Makikinabang program will move to Mandaluyong City, where another distribution event will be held at the Mandaluyong College of Science and Technology Gymnasium in Welfareville, Barangay Addition Hills. The chief executive will be represented at the Mandaluyong event, which is expected to gather local officials, beneficiaries, and community groups. The administration says the continuing rollout reflects its commitment to ensure that government support reaches every city, every barangay, and every Filipino family.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. marked Sunday with a warm birthday message for his youngest son, William Vincent Vinny Marcos, describing him as adventurous, grounded, and kind-hearted. In a light-hearted social media post, the president fondly recalled Vinny's love for travel and the outdoors, saying his son is sometimes in the mountains, sometimes at the beach, sometimes off somewhere else. President Marcos added that despite Vinny's constant adventures, he has remained humble, kind, and full of life, leaving a little happiness with the people he meets. The chief executive also expressed pride in the man his son has become, speaking on behalf of First Lady Liza Araneta Marcos. Vinny is the youngest of the first couple's 3 sons, alongside Ilocos Norte 1st District Representative Ferdinand Alexander Sandro Marcos and Joseph Simon Marcos. Unlike his older brother, Sandro, who entered politics in 2022, Vinny has largely maintained a low public profile, occasionally joining his parents in public events and social gatherings.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. emerged as the most approved government official in a new nationwide survey by the RPMD Foundation Incorporated. Results of the Boses ng Bayan survey, conducted from the 1st to the 8th of April, showed the president posting the highest rating among the country's top 4 public officials, based on combined trust and approval scores. The non-commissioned poll covered 5,000 respondents nationwide and has a plus-minus 1% margin of error. President Marcos registered a 57% index of governance, or IOG, anchored on 56% trust and 58% approval. RPMD said public confidence in the president remained steady despite recent political developments, including discussions on the possible impeachment of Vice President Sara Duterte and the arrest of Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa. The president posted his strongest support in balanced Luzon at 58%. While also gaining ground in Mindanao, traditionally considered a Duterte stronghold. Respondents in the Visayas were described as politically divided but leaning slightly in favor of the president. Vice President Duterte followed with a 54% IOG, backed by 57% trust and 51% approval. She continued to draw strong support in Mindanao but recorded a lower approval rating compared with other senior officials. According to the survey, former Senate President Vicente Soto III posted a 52% IOG, while House Speaker Faustino D. III recorded 55%. Among cabinet officials, Social Welfare Secretary Rex Gatchalian topped the list with an 87% IOG, followed by Education Secretary Sani Angara with 85%. Local Government Secretary John Vic Remulla at 82%, and Public Works Secretary Vince Dizon with 80%. Other high-scoring cabinet members included Executive Secretary Ralph Recto at 78%, Justice Secretary Eric Vida 76%, Agriculture Secretary Francisco Chu Laurel Jr. at 75%, Trade Secretary Cristina Roque 73%, Defense Secretary Gilberto Chodoro Jr. 72%, and Special Assistant to the President Anton Lagdameo at 70%. They were followed by Presidential Communications Office or PCO Acting Secretary Dave Gomez at 69%, Migrant Workers Secretary Hans Leo Kakdak at 67%, Health Secretary Chodoro Herbosa 65%, Foreign Affairs Secretary Maria Teresa Lazaro 63%, Labor Secretary Bienvenido Laguesma 62%, and Housing Secretary Jose Aliling at 60%. Rounding out the list were Agrarian Reform Secretary Conrado Estrella III at 58.5%, Transportation Secretary Giovanni Lopez 57%, Information and Communications Technology Secretary Henry Aguda at 55.5%, Finance Secretary Frederick Go 54%, Energy Secretary Sharon Garin 53.5%, Economic Planning Secretary Arsenio Balisacan 52.5%, Solicitor General Darlene Berabe 51.5%, and Acting Budget Secretary Rolando Toledo at 50.5%. RPMD said the results reflect a shifting political environment shaped by issues of accountability, governance performance, and institutional stability.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. over the weekend urged the 207 graduates of the Philippine Military Academy or PMA Talang Dangal class of 2026 to rise above politics and remain unwavering in their loyalty to the Constitution and to the Filipino people. Speaking at the commencement rites in Fort del Pilar, Baguio City, the President reminded the cadets that the true strength of a soldier lies in integrity, discipline, and honor, values that must guide them as they enter the ranks of the Armed Forces of the Philippines or AFP. President Marcos emphasized that their oath binds them not to any political figure or ideology, but to the Constitution. President Marcos acknowledged that the graduates will face difficult decisions throughout their careers, but said they will never lose direction as long as their allegiance remains with the Philippine flag. The chief executive also underscored the importance of the PMA Honor Code, telling the cadets to never lie, cheat, steal, or tolerate wrongdoing. He warned that silence in the face of misconduct is a betrayal of their values and of the country they vowed to defend. The Commander-in-Chief expressed confidence that the new officers are prepared to confront both traditional and emerging security threats. President Marcos noted that the Academy's modernization efforts have introduced new disciplines, including data science, Python foundations, artificial intelligence, electronic warfare, and unmanned systems, equipping cadets with essential competencies for modern warfare.
As you take your oath today, remember that your loyalty is not to any political interest, not to any individual, nor any passing ideology. Your loyalty must always remain with the Constitution of the Republic of the Philippines. Throughout this mission, carry with you the honor code instilled in you by the Academy. Never lie, never cheat, never steal, and never tolerate those who do. Because silence in the face of wrongdoing is a betrayal of your values, a betrayal of your country, and a betrayal of the very principles that you have sworn to defend. Along the way, you will encounter a lot of forks in the road that will test your resolve, placing you in situations where you must choose between difficult options. But as long as you remain faithful to our flag and committed to serving our citizens, you will never lose direction. Do this to also honor your upper-class superiors, your mentors, instructors, your parents, families, and loved ones, all those who believed in you throughout this demanding yet rewarding journey. Bilang inyong Commander-in-Chief, naniniwala ako sa inyong kakayahan. Naniniwala ako na tapat kayong maglilingkod sa kapwa ninyong Pilipino at sa ating inambayan.
Year's graduating class, tagapagtanggol ng lahing dakila at marangal, is composed of 207 cadets, 142 men and 65 women who will now join the AFP. Leading the batch is Cadet First Class Christine K. Demisana Librada of Lipa City, Batangas, the 9th female cadet to top the Academy since 1993. She will be commissioned as a junior officer in the Philippine Army.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. reaffirmed his readiness to increase funding for the Socio-Civic Projects Fund, or SCPF, next year, saying the government will expand the program if its rollout continues to show strong results. Speaking at the turnover of SCPF financial assistance in Tuguegarao City, the President said the administration is committed to sustaining programs that directly benefit communities. President Marcos assured Cagayanos that the national government remains accessible and responsive. The chief executive also reminded Cagayan's presidential scholars to make the full use of the scholarship program, stressing that education equips young Filipinos to uplift their families and serve their communities. During the ceremonial turnover, all 820 barangays or villages in Cagayan Province received 200,000 pesos each, coursed through the provincial governor, Tuguegarao City Mayor, and the Provincial and City Association of Barangay Captains, or ABC presidents. As of May 14th, the SCPF Bawat Barangay Makikinabang program has released 200,000 pesos each to 7,933 barangays, amounting to 1.59 billion pesos. Under the program, 100,000 pesos funds barangay-identified priority projects such as public services, office equipment, street lighting, and disaster risk reduction initiatives. The remaining 100,000 pesos supports 5 Bagong Pilipinas barangay scholars, each receiving 20,000 pesos in assistance.
Yun po, pagka maging maganda ang patakbo nitong programang ito. Pagka naging maganda ang pagkalat natin ng benepisyo sa iba't ibang lugar, ay asahan ninyo na pagdating ng budget sa 2027, dagdagan po natin ng budget para mas malaki pa ang magiging programa natin. Ayun lang naman po, basta't yun lang, gusto ko lang mapalaman po ninyong lahat na ang inyong pamahalaan ay nandito, lagi po umaalalay sa inyo, nakikinig sa inyo. Kung meron po kayong hinain, kung meron po kayong kailangan, kung meron kayong gustong sabihin, ay sabihin niyo po kami. At kami nakikinig naman at kung kaya namin gawin at bigyan ng solusyon ang magiging problema, ay asahan ninyo, gagawin po namin.
Was Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
In other news, Philippine National Police or PNP Chief General Jose Melencio Nartates Jr. on Sunday appealed for calm as he assured the public that investigators are conducting a fair, thorough, and fact-based probe into the May 13 gunfire incident inside the Senate compound. The PNP chief issued the call amid a surge of online speculation and conflicting narratives circulating on social media. Nartates said the PNP is looking into all angles based on facts and evidence to come up with a clear picture of what really happened, emphasizing that the investigation is anchored on truth, accountability, and justice. The incident stemmed from the admission of Acting Senate Sergeant-at-Arms Mau Aplaska that he fired a warning shot after spotting armed individuals, later identified as National Bureau of Investigation or NBI personnel, within Senate grounds. Aplaska said Office of the Senate Sergeant-at-Arms or OSAA personnel challenged the group, asked them to identify themselves, and ordered them to lower their firearms, but the individuals allegedly did not comply. Police personnel were already deployed around the Senate at the time. Nartates, who rushed to the Senate shortly after the gunfire to check on senators and secure the area, said, investigators have gathered significant evidence and testimonies, including the arrest of one suspect and copies of CCTV footage. He added that concerned government agencies have been fully cooperative in the ongoing probe.
Dateline Malacañang.
Meanwhile, Philippine National Police or PNP Chief General Jose Melencio Nartates Jr. has ordered an internal investigation into allegations that local police may have helped escort Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa out of the Senate compound in the early hours of May 14th. In a statement Sunday, Nartates stressed that the PNP will not tolerate any action that undermines the institution's integrity. The directive follows the admission of Pasay City Police Chief Colonel Joselito De Sesto that he was inside the white police vehicle seen leaving the Senate compound around 3 in the morning, traveling alongside a black van suspected of carrying De La Rosa. De Sesto denied providing escort. Nartates warned that any officer found to have facilitated unauthorized movements or misled authorities will face administrative and criminal sanctions. De La Rosa resurfaced at the Senate on May 11th after being out of public view for nearly 6 months amid reports of an International Criminal Court or ICC arrest warrant. He was placed under Senate custody but left the building days later, just hours after a gunfire incident inside the compound. addressing speculations that Camp Crame may have known about or approved De La Rosa's departure. Nartates issued a categorical denial. Nartates said the national leadership had no prior knowledge of, nor did it authorize any logistical assistance for Senator De La Rosa's departure, adding that the deployment was strictly for public safety, crowd control, and perimeter management following the volatile shooting incident earlier that night.
Dateline Malacañang.
The Philippine Coast Guard, or PCG, conducted a maritime domain awareness flight over the Pag-asa case on May 17th to challenge and drive away what it described as illegal marine scientific research by a Chinese vessel near K2 and K3. According to the PCG, its aircraft monitored the China-flagged research ship Xiangyang Hong 33, which was reported conducting survey activities inside the territorial sea of Pag-asa Island without authorization from the Philippine government. The vessel was said to be escorted by Chinese Coast Guard ships CCG 5101 and CCG 5309, while Chinese personnel were spotted on K2 before moving toward K3. Following the directive of Coast Guard Commandant Admiral Ronnie Hill Gavan, the PCG deployed Islander 4177 to intensify monitoring operations across the Kalayaan Island group. The PCG also documented 20 Chinese maritime militia vessels operating near Sandy K3 and 4. The Coast Guard stressed that conducting marine scientific research within a coastal state's territorial sea without consent is a violation of Philippine sovereignty and the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS. PCG aircrew issued radio challenges to the Chinese vessels, ordering them to cease their unauthorized activities. The agency said it will continue its monitoring missions and take necessary actions to protect the country's sovereign rights and jurisdiction in the West Philippine Sea, in line with the directives of President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
The Department of Agriculture, or DA, is warning rice retailers, traders, and importers that they face severe penalties if they violate the newly imposed 30-day price ceiling on imported rice under the Price Act. The government set the temporary price cap on imported 5% broken rice to curb what it described as unjustified price increases in the market and to stabilize supply for consumers. Agriculture Secretary Francisco Chu Laurel Jr. said the government now has stronger enforcement powers compared to the previous suggested retail price, or SRP system, noting that violations can now lead to criminal and administrative sanctions. Under Republic Act, or RA number 7581, or the Price Act, offenders may face 1 to 10 years of imprisonment and fines of up to 1 million pesos on top of administrative penalties. These include the closure of business operations, confiscation of stocks, and revocation of permits and licenses. The DA said it will intensify monitoring of markets and rice outlets nationwide throughout the 30-day implementation period to ensure full compliance and protect consumers from overpricing.
Dateline Malacañang.
And finally, the Visayas grid on Monday is once again under strain, with the National Grid Corporation of the Philippines or NGCP placing the region on yellow alert this afternoon as power supply continues to tighten. From 4 in the afternoon to 8 in the evening, the Visayas will operate with an available capacity of 2,676 megawatts against a projected peak demand of 2,513 megawatts. A slim reserve that triggers the alert. Behind the thinning supply is a long list of power plants that remain offline. 13 facilities have been on forced outage since May 2026, 1 since March, 3 since 2025, 2 since 2024, 2 since 2023, and 1 plant has been down since 2021. On top of that, 11 more plants are running at derated capacities, bringing the total unavailable supply to 852.9 megawatts. Grid operators point to 2 major factors driving today's yellow alert: the continued unavailability of large Visayas coal plants TVI-1, TVI-2, and PEDC-3, and a high system demand forecast typical during the dry season. A yellow alert means the grid's operating margin is not enough to cover contingency requirements, leaving the system vulnerable if another major plant trips. Authorities are urging consumers and local governments to brace for possible advisories as the region navigates another tight power situation.
Dateline Malacañang.
Before we conclude our program, Radyo Pilipinas World Service of the Presidential Broadcast Service can be heard over the following shortwave frequencies: 15.640 MHz, 17.750 MHz, and 21.720 MHz. Radyo Pilipinas World Service is also live on audio streaming. Just download Evox PBS Receiver on your Google Play Store or the App Store from your Apple phone. You can also visit our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Just type in and search for Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Kindly subscribe, like, and share our posts as well. And that concludes this edition of Dateline Malacañang. For Radyo Pilipinas World Service, this is Leo Magpayo. Good day and stay safe.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.